Good morning, Tony. The floor is yours.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. Well, welcome to all of you from across the world and in many different time zones. And thanks for taking part in this exciting and informative British Early Childhood Education Research Association, BECERA conference. It's a learning community wherein many of you will be actively participating as speakers and presenters. And this is very much your conference. And in your choices, interactions and selections, shape it to your needs. So whether this is your first time or you've attended several previous BECERA conferences, I welcome you. My name is Tony Bertram, and I'm part of the team at the Centre for Research in Early Childhood, CREG, which is in Birmingham in the English Midlands. And CREG sponsors the BECERA conference, and the CREG team is working hard behind the scenes, as you heard, to deliver this two-day program effectively and efficiently, we hope. It was in 2010 that CREG launched and hosted the first BECERA conference. So that's 12 years ago. And we're proud that we've held it annually ever since. Many of you will know that CREG also administers the annual European Early Childhood Education Research Conference, that's BECERA, on behalf of their board of trustees. And each year it attracts nearly 900 early years researchers from across the world. BECERA takes place in a different European city each year. And this year the conference will be held face-to-face again and take part in Glasgow in Scotland in September. So looking forward to that. And you can find out more about that on their website. So today and tomorrow, we've an interesting array of speakers and presenters, focused predominantly on a crucial issue of our times, perhaps the crucial issue, sustainability. And when we talk of sustainability, we mean not just the ecology of the environment and the climate and global warming and all those changes, important as they are, but also we're looking at the UN goals and in particular the social goals regarding social ecology and equality and human rights. And I know that our key speaker today will address that wider perspective as it relates to early childhood and families. So, Aoife Arlemalm-Hagser is Professor in Early Childhood Education at Malardalen University in Sweden. And though she's now a serious academic, she's grounded in practice, originally working as a preschool teacher. And Aoife, that's exactly what I love, that interrelation between practice and serious research. And now, as well as holding that full chair at Malardalen, she's the lead researcher in the children and young people at school and in society, the so-called BUS project. And her research is focused on education for sustainability, and she links that to children's participation and agency and voice as that relates to policy and practice, the implications and applications for policy and practice. In 2019, Aoife initiated the Sustainability SIG at BECERA, the special interest group on sustainability, and she continues to be their elected convener. She's also co-convener of the Transnational Dialogues in Early Childhood Education for Sustainability, that research group, and she's been actively involved in that since, I think, 2010. Eva's got many publications in this area, and her most recent one is a co-edited publication, Researching Early Childhood Education for Sustainability, Challenging Assumptions and Orthodoxies. Now, I don't want to take up any more of your time, Eva, but as I said, this is an interactive conference, and during the talk, you will be able to, as it said on the screen earlier on, use the chat function at the bottom of this screen to say hello to each other, but also for comment, you know, a stream of comment during the talk itself, the keynote itself. If you've got a particular question that you want to ask Eva, can you mark it in capital letters, question, so that we can pick it up easily when I feed questions at the end, hopefully, if we have time, to Eva. So use that function. And as I say, put capital letter question, Hans put it there for us. This session will be recorded and it will be available from Thursday. Make as will all the others during the course of the conference program, will be available from Thursday. Can I ask you to keep your microphones and your cameras off during the talk, and use the hashtag BECERA on social media. Do use that one. So I think that's all my rules and regulations. Eva, sorry to have kept you waiting and to have made such a hash of my Swedish vowels. Over to you. Over to you.
Thank you, Tony. So I will share my presentation, and I will do it twice because the Zoom link needs to work like this. So I first do this, and I will share it again. And now I think you can see my presentation in full screen.
Perfect, Eva.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much for inviting me to do this presentation at the BECERA conference. And thank you, Tony, for this fantastic introduction about my work. So I won't say so much about that before I start the presentation, but I would say something that maybe is of interest for you all. As Tony said, I'm a professor of early childhood education at Malardalen University. And this year, I actually celebrate 40 years as a preschool teacher. And in Sweden, we call ourselves preschool teacher, but you have several different names of what the teacher called that work in early childhood education. But I'm actually celebrating 40 years as a preschool teacher. And the last 18 years, I have been working with teacher education and research on Malardalen University. And it's really fantastic for me because the first conference, when I was presenting about education for sustainability, was at the OMAP conference in Copenhagen, 1998. So it's a really long time ago. And then I presented the work that I have done with children in age 1 to 3 in the Swedish preschool about ecological, social, and economical sustainability. And this was after the Agenda 21 that was really big in Sweden, and the work in the preschools was very intensive about sustainability as a whole, with this broad perspective on ecological, social, and economic sustainability. And since then, as Tony says, I've been working in different research groups and develop research internationally about sustainable development and as we talk about sustainability. So I'm so glad that the interest and the urgent need for working with sustainability and young children have grown over the years. And I'm really happy to take part of this work and also to take part in this conference to share this research that we have been working on in several different research groups over the years. I'm happy to share everything this with you. So today's presentation will cover 4 important parts in education for sustainability in early childhood education. And the first part is, what is the problem that we are looking on, and what can we do? And how is children exposed to that? And secondly, I will talk about early childhood education for sustainability in historical and contemporary perspectives. And the third part will be previous research on education for sustainability in relation to early childhood education. And the last part that I will talk about is building sustainability in early childhood education and its critical aspects and visible needs. But we start in the problems. And now it's not about doom and gloom, but about that you actually have to know what the problem is to understand how we can work with this with children. So this is my first slide about this. This great acceleration graphs is originally published in 2004 by Stefan. And it shows that socioeconomic and earth system trends from the industrial revolution until now. And the dominant feature in this social economic trend is that economic activity of the human enterprise continue to grow at a rapid rate. Changes in the human production, consumption, energy consumption, among other trends, are reflecting the change in the Earth's natural systems. With the climate, like greenhouse gas levels and global temperature, ocean acidification and tropical forest loss, among others. This is not unexpected, as human species population rose from 1 to 9 billion people in about 120 years, with increasing demands for goods and service underpinned by natural resources. And the graph shows that humans have been a significant factor in changing the Earth's geology, climate, and ecosystem, and in a negative way. So scientists as Stefan are suggesting that the period from the Industrial Revolution from the mid-770s to the present can now be named geologically as the Anthropocene, an epoch where the human species became dominant and vastly reshaped the Earth. Other researchers, as Rockström, have developed, together with a big group of researchers, of course, developed the planetary boundaries by listing thresholds that must not be exceeded in order for the Earth to remain in a stable state. They describe 9 processes, the planetary boundaries, that regulate the stability and resilience of the Earth systems. 2 of these values have already been exceeded: the biodiversity and the nitrogen cycle, plus a 3rd value, climate change, is about to exceed. This means that it's urgent for us all to change in sustainable lifestyles and habit. People around the world are now witness firsthand how climate change with pollutants in the water, soil and air, plus rising sea levels and atmospheric carbon dioxide levels change the planet and the conditions for all species living at the Earth. The change on Earth will bring about biodiversity losses and the sixth mass extinction, the depletion of Earth life forms is our responsibility. And while the world has been plugged into a deadly pandemic, scientists are sounding the alarm once more that climate change is the greatest threat to human health in recorded history. Research shows also that climate change is the most important threat to human. Good health requires clean air and water, safe supplies of food and healthy lifestyles. And the World Health Organization recognized climate change as one of the greatest new threats to children's environment and health. And for some half a year ago, we had this presentation, and it was so cool that had a fantastic presentation about this in our SIG group of sustainability. And we learned a lot by her presentation. But it's not finished by that. It's large social divides, both between countries and within countries. And also this can be seen in the early childhood education over the world. Researchers as Campbell, Garcia and Schoen have shown how children actually are a part of being this inequality. Other research show also that inequality are evident between men and women, and children are also part of this, of course. And researchers Place and Littleton Smith are studying how this inequality are shown in early childhood education. So we have both these environmental problems, and we have these health problems, and we also have equality and equality problems, both social and cultural problems to work with, and that gives implications, of course, for children. So Clark with their colleagues write like this: we live in an era like no other. Our children face a future of great opportunities, but they stand on the precipice of a climate crisis. And I just move a bit here so I can see the presentation, sorry. And as Curry and Deschênes says, the risks are constantly increasing and pose some critical threats to all the world's children, if not radical change occurs. And we can see that the world is really needing everybody to make a stance here and to work with sustainability issues. So that can be stopped with of climate change and the biodiversity losses and its impact on humans, both ecological, social, and economical, and the impact on non-human lives. It can be stopped and revised. in this video, Breaking Boundaries, the Science of Our Planet, Sir David Attenborough and the scientist Johan Rockström, together with also Greta Thunberg, examine the Earth biodiversity collapse and how the crisis still can be averted. And we can change this by renewable energy, circular economy, no waste products and processes, litter reductions, healthy food waste avoidance, natural environmental restoration, and tree planting. But everyone needs to take responsibility for this change. And in this change, children can take part. And children and young adults are actually show us the way. As Greta Thunberg, she talked on UN, and she also inspired lots of young adults all over the world. And she says that you are never too small to make a difference. When we come to the presentation about historical and temporal perspective in early childhood and research about sustainability. As we know, children and teachers in early childhood settings have an important role in this change for sustainability. And we know that early childhood, since its start, built on ideas that qualitative caring and education will create possibilities for a better world for all. And also that a deep connection to the nature with inspiration from Froebel and Rousseau is of big importance for children's development and well-being. So what kind of skills do children need for creating a sustainable future? We talk about sustainability and we talk about sustainable development. For me, I use sustainability, but in most documents, like policy documents, they use sustainable development, and also in the Swedish documents, political documents, sustainable development is used. But of course, we need to work with the thing that actually started by defining sustainable development, meeting the needs of the current generation without compromising the needs for further generation, and intergenerational equity. And we also need to work with emphasize the planetary ethics and the growth. By Copina, for example, write about this. And the UN have developed 70 SDGs goals that is a support for transformation and change. And over the world, children are working with this. And one really great example is in UK is Dr. Deanne Boyd, that have developed a resource to support early childhood practice in the work with sustainability and with the sustainable goals. So we have this steering document from the policy, and we need to take them on and work with this in the early childhood education. So you need, when you work with children, there is 3 significant perspectives that actually we have to work on: children's participation and agency, everyday practice and learning, to build culture for sustainability. I will talk a bit more about that soon. Critical thinking and challenging, taking for granted understanding and doings, a transformative learning. And other aspects is, of course, solidarity, responsibility, and action competence, as ethical dilemmas and perspective always are part in the early childhood education's everyday life. And according to Elliott and Davis, are there 7 key characteristics for early childhood education for sustainability. The first is experiential play-based approach for hands-on learning to promote child-led exploration and decision-making, action-oriented challenges that target value skills and localized concern. Transformative learning, where taken for granted norms or questions and systemic changes create at multiple levels. And also participatory approach, as people work collaboratively together towards a shared aim while recognizing various perspectives, skills, and strengths. The other key characteristics are inquiry-based learning. We focus on problem finding and solution seeking of real-world issues. Multidimensional thinking, which recognizes the complexity of interrelationships across multiple dimensions, and of course, transdisciplinary, not stand-alone subject, but an integrated way of thinking and acting, drawing from various disciplines. And this is not so strange for early childhood education, because we have been working with these things for a very long time in different projects together, both teacher and children, and with children's participation and influence. So how can we look at transformative learning? It's about develop new ways of thinking and doing, of course. We can't do this in the same way as we're doing. We need to solve social, economic, and ecological problems with new way of thinking. And we have to challenge unsustainable structures and mindsets. And we have to think differently, using the skills of fantasy, creativity, and problem solving, something that children are very good at if they are allowed. And we need to work with cultures of sustainability, a whole institutional approach that lots of researchers now are thinking that's the way of working with sustainability. And we also need to create children's environment for challenge and learning, where play, art, and construction, language learning, and exploration of different kinds are part in children's everyday life. So we need to understand that education for sustainability is based on complexity and multi-phased areas of knowledge. And the development of sustainability have gone from the environmental education to sustainable development to education for sustainability. And as researchers say, we have to look at 3 different perspectives of this. It's about health, well-being, and survival of human and other species. Ethical and philosophical questions of values and justice about relations between people and between humans and nature. Knowledge about nature, ecosystem, environments, natural resources, planetary boundaries, and human influence on them. And Julie Davis and Elizabeth Barrett from UK, Julie Davis is from Australia, argued early that children have capability and potential as critical thinker and agents for change. So Julie Davis highlights that children have the right to express their opinion and make their voice heard, a right dimension. They are also capable to take part in and shape the world, a competence dimension. And they are also important actors in this work with ability to challenge and to act, a participatory action dimension. But before I talk a bit about what we know about the research of early childhood education for sustainability, we need some theoretical standing points. Clarence Sterling argues that transformation toward a sustainable future will not happen on its own, and therefore believes there is a need for education that actually are questioning and disrupting unsustainable ways of thinking and acting, and an education that gives opportunities for new ways to support transformative ways of working where previous structures are challenges and generate lasting measures for a sustainable futures. And as Christina said, an education with the human-nature relationship is put in focus in aim to slowing down and limit critical development and the impact on Earth and atmosphere, an education that target both non-anthropocentric ethic and pragmatically the growth as two strategies for addressing sustainability. So what we know? We know a lot after these years of research, and the research field of early childhood education for sustainability have expanded considerably since Julie Davis, 2009, made her meta-study about sustainability. And now several researchers and research overviews have given us further understanding of the field. So we know that education of sustainability is seen as an important knowledge content in early childhood. And children are often portrayed as important actors in relation to their lives in the present and future. We know also that staff, preschool staff or early childhood education staff have different perceptions and descriptions of what they work when they work with sustainability, but that they work with that in their preschools and settings. But we also know that some dimensions appear very clear, more clearly than others. And we know that children have knowledge of social, economic, and ecological aspects of sustainability. And that there are various research with quality support tools, as for example, the OMAP ESD rating scale. So we know a lot. And we know that actually teachers sees sustainability from different ways, as I said before. And in one study that I was doing together with my colleague, Annette Sandberg, Professor Annette Sandberg, 2011, very long time ago, it showed that the preschool staff described their work with sustainability from a holistic perspective, that it was permitted in all situations in the preschool, or in an environmental oriented perspective, that it was just about science learning and activities about nature. But also one group of preschool staff says it was on working on the democracy perspective, that sustainable development has an emphasis on human rights, gender equality as social competence, and moral and ethics. And in another study by Hedefalk, Almqvist, and Östman, they did an overview of lots of studies, and there they can see that preschool staff see education for sustainability as to educate children about environmental issues, nature and science, and to educate them about the issues of environmental issues, but also to change behavioral attitudes for a more sustainable world, or to educate children to think critical. So we have this very different way of understanding sustainability, and it's of great importance that teachers actually start to think what do we mean by sustainable development and sustainability in early childhood. And we can also see that the environmental dimension is the dimension that actually people are saying that they are working with, and not so much with the social and the economic dimension of sustainability. This is from a study that I did with a Swedish researcher in 2016. I will now give you an example on 3 different research studies. In this first study about social and cultural sustainability by Lee, Hammond, Hesterman, and Knaus, they actually show that children can problematize aspects of poverty and social and cultural diversities. So here was the children asked to draw what they have in a refrigerator, and the children show that they have different amount of food in the refrigerator, and it also shows cultural diversity in ways of that children actually draw different kind of food. And this was a really good way of discussing issues of culture and sustainability, social sustainability issues. And the children discuss both poverty, but also different culture context and what kind of food they were eating. So by doing this very, very easily in the early childhood, we can discuss very, very complex issues on social and cultural sustainability. In another study I was working with was about economic sustainabilities. And that when we started this project, the Swedish teacher said to us, researcher, that they never work with economic sustainability. But after a while, when we have discussed with them and problematized their taken for granted understanding, it shows that they work with economic sustainability in several different levels. They were working with conserving resources and reducing resources, and they handle toys and material very carefully and work with children about that. And they also arrange environment to support children to work with things about economic and activities for how you can think about economic and finances. And they also discovered that the children, they know a lot of things about economy and economical issues, things that they haven't thought of before. And I suppose that you are thinking about that, you are working with that, but that was really interesting to see that they were actually thinking that they didn't work with that, and they changed their mind after this discussion. Another study about ecological sustainability of Linda Gorman describes how children reflect on maritime debris causing major problems for fish and marine animals. And the children reacted with sympathy and ideas for change. This is wrong, they say. The turtles are dying. Why are we doing this? And why don't we stop? And the children also react with thinking of here and now. So they were looking at that no one were throwing litter outside. And if you can say that the images that they were looking at when they are working with this team, they could be scary. But O'Gorman says that it's actually important to work with this, because that's the reality of children, and they see it also in the press and in the media, of course. So O'Gorman says that transformative teachers need to be bold risk takers, willing to disrupt and rebel against traditional approaches to early childhood education. And they need to nurture children's capacity for empathy, love, grief in disruptive, risky, and transformational learning environments. So now we are talking about building sustainability in early childhood. And there are no ongoing questions. What education is required? And it needs to be imaginative, creative, courageous, and radical. And it's all about creating changes and understanding how the earth resources are used and created, and create understanding of the interconnections of humans, but also to offer children, regardless of their sociocultural backgrounds or specific need, experience of participation and belonging in the preschool and society. So how can we do this? I've been talking a lot about cultures for sustainability. And what is this? It's actually to have a holistic perspective where you look at the preschool from the building to the play material, to the knowledge attitude, and together to work together with others. You need to build this holistic way of looking at the preschool and the management of the preschool. And this is an important part of sustainability and the work with sustainability. So it actually happens in the preschool. And researchers, Julie Davis and also Arjen Walls is talking about this whole institutional approach. I won't read everything for you, but you can read more about these issues in all the texts that I was part of. And as I said before, we have to work on transformative change and processes to create a way of thinking, challenge sustainable structure, and work with ecological, social, and economical issues as three interrelated dimensions. And we need to develop imagination, creativity, and problem-solving skill with children. And we need to work together, adults and children, for change, and embed the culture for sustainability in all practice and activities that take place, from management to working with children. So now we are in the end of the presentation, and I will give you 12 proposals for working with sustainable change to challenge assumptions and orthodoxies in early childhood education for sustainability. And these proposals are built on contemporary research about education for sustainability in early childhood education. So now I will read them. You need to promote children's well-being and health, recognize equality for all people and human rights, take into account and live in other people's situations with willingness to help, discover, reflect, and take stand on ethical dilemmas and life issues in everyday life, work with belonging, community, and togetherness, understand relationship in nature, nature's different cycles and human dependencies on a viable nature. We need to recognize how people, nature, and society affect each other, plant trees and flowers for biodiversity in the early preschool local environment. We need to adopt red-listed species as a local plants, insects, birds, and fish and animals, and promote species survival. We have to challenge how preschool resources are used, like sorting, pick and litter, and consumption patterns. We need to review the early childhood setting sustainability cultures at all levels, like sustainable management, leadership, food practices, knowledge and didactic know-how. And we also need to build contacts and collaboration with other preschools, with the municipals, with the region, globally, and with others who are involved in sustainable development. So that's things we can do in preschool, and it's not so far away from what we actually do right now. So it's try to get the holistic approach about working with sustainability in the early childhood. So some few closing words. It's not about educating children to make them know everything about sustainability or sustainable development, but to educate children, educate individuals who can detect injustice, inequality, and problems of various kinds, and who are given the opportunity to act on their condition and opportunities. To educate children who can take a stand and act. Young children can be important agents of change, and early childhood teachers can be inspiring role models for sustainability education. An education where ethics, caring, curiosity, critical and disruptive dialogue, and problem solving all challenge the assumption that others are taken for granted through transformation and transaction in the daily preschool activities. As further action is required to go beyond business as usual, and teachers have the responsibility to develop cultures for sustainability and transformative learning and change, for promoting planetary ethics and the growth, where solidarity, responsibility, and action competence is part of everyday practice in early childhood education. Thank you for listening.
And thank you, Eva, for sharing your scholarship, both at a theoretical level, but also for giving us those practical indicators that we can explore with the children with whom and families with whom we work. And to do all of that in a language which isn't your own, I think bravo to you. I don't want to, we haven't got much time left. I don't want to talk much more other than to say to Sean, have we got some questions that we might feed to Eva that come up through the chat?
We do, Tony. I think Helen is going to feed those into you from your left ear.
Can you hear me all right, Tony?
Yeah, go on, Helen.
Okay, Tony. So we've got one question around with teachers and educators focusing more specifically on environmental sustainability. What could we do specifically to raise awareness of other aspects of sustainability?
Yeah, I think that Eva, you're muted, but I think the general question is, that there is a tendency to focus on the ecological things, the waste and so on. are not on these other things that you've highlighted about social solidarity and so on.
Yeah, I think that it's lots of preschools or early childhood education that you are saying, in Sweden we call them preschools, are working with issues of this social and cultural inclusion. And you need to like add it to the sustainability, your thoughts about that's actually sustainability, working with sustainability. It's more that the mindset is not on, when you say sustainable development, it is not on social and cultural sustainability or economic sustainability. So you have to change your mindset and add it to this discussion and actually start to talk about it as social and economic and sustainability, and of course cultural and political sustainability also. So I think you are working a lot with these issues in the preschool, and I know from Sweden also.
It's about raising awareness. Yeah, Helen.
Yeah, so a follow-up question to that really then, what would Eva do first?
First, I actually will sit down and discuss about what we are, how we interpret the sustainability and what we actually can do in the early childhood education, because it's lots of things we can do, as I give you an example on. So, but we need to start to think about this culture for sustainability and how you can work with this in the whole preschool, the whole institution. And that's the way of starting up the work with it. And when I was talking about this whole institution approach, it actually was when I was working as a preschool teacher. The municipal we can apply to get bronze, silver, and gold certification from the municipal about sustainability. And then when you talk about bronze, it was about the house, more about how you are doing with the electricity and so on. In the second step with the silver, it was about children's understanding of sustainability. And the gold was about to connecting to others, to parents, to others outside the preschool. So that's a way for municipals to actually support the preschools and everyone in a municipal to work with things like this. And you can make it as a prize, or you can do it in lots of ways, but that was very effective to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that. Start small and think big.
I think we may have time for another one. Just one more, Helen.
One more question then. So despite all of the challenges that we've all been considering this morning, do you feel personally optimistic, and what can stop the pessimism?
Oh, I feel so optimistic, especially with all these young adults that actually is working so hard now to change the direction. And we know that the research is showing us very clearly now that we have to change. And I think that, and I can see the politicians now, and also with the SDG goals, that they actually taking on the task. So I'm optimistic, but we all have to help doing this, working together. So,
well, I think I'll wrap it up there. We have lots of opportunities, Eva. I hope during the rest of the conference to discuss these hugely important issues that you've raised. But it just remains for me to say, on behalf of everybody who's been here, what a fantastic start you've given us to our conference. Thank you ever so much. And if you would like to, you can join in us for our next symposium session. Because, of course, the conference is worldwide, we do have to spread it out across the day. And so the next symposium is going to begin in a few hours' time at 1 o'clock. We look forward to seeing you all then. But many, many thanks, Eva. Fantastic presentation.
Thank you, and I'm glad that you bear with me with my English.
Eva, it is fantastic. I can't remember who it was who said that she was every bit as good a dancer as the partner that she had, but she had to do it all backwards. One of the Hollywood film stars. I always think of that when you give a presentation in a language which isn't your own. Not only was it a brilliant presentation, but actually you did it really well. Fantastic.
Thank you. Hope for a fruitful continue the conference.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Eva.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody. We'll see you later.